What's good, YouTube? Just thought I'd show you a quick Ableton Live setup guide in case you're using the software for the first time and you haven't set it all up. So when you first open the software, you'll be greeted with pretty much this page, apart from you won't have like the sample packs and stuff down there, but we'll go through how to get all your sample packs and stuff in. First thing you want to do when you've opened the software is go to Options, Preferences. On the first tab, the second tab on the Audio tab, you need to make sure your driver type is set to your sound drivers. So in the case of Windows, you're going to want ASIO for all drivers. ASIO for all drivers were developed by Steinberg, and they are amazing for all things audio production. They're low latency audio drivers that you do need. Unless you're on a Mac, of course, and then you just use Core Audio Simples, unless you've got an external sound card, which is obviously highly recommended. Obviously make sure your audio device is set to your audio device. So in my case, I've got a Tractor Control S8, which is a DJ controller, but it's got a built-in sound card, so I use it as my main sound card. It's got a lot of inputs on it. It's great. It's like an audio input. So make sure that's set to your main sound card, and make sure your ASIO drivers are on, otherwise you're going to have latency issues all over the place. Second thing you're going to want to do is make sure your latency shouldn't below 18 milliseconds. Mine isn't great, and I've just messed with this setting loads, but providing your overall latency is below 18 milliseconds, you shouldn't have much issue playing MIDI pianos and such, and you won't get really any lag whatsoever. Ideally it needs to be below 5, ideally, preferably below 10, but below 18 is okay. But yeah, if you find you've got latency issues, you can fiddle with your driver error compensation, which just compensates for latency. If you've still got latency issues, then you can go into your ASIO drivers and just change your sample rate and your buffer settings until you don't have any latency issues anymore. Last thing you're going to want to do with audio is to test it to make sure you don't have any pops and crackles. So all you do is you turn this test tone on, and you make sure that you don't have any pops or crackles. Like in my case, I do, but that's just because of what's going on with this system at the moment. Don't worry about that. You can bring it all the way up to 80% and see if you still don't have any pops or crackles. Obviously this just simulates CPU usage, so you know that when you're doing some intense Ableton stuff, as you will be doing, you're not going to have any audio issues, which is pretty standard. Okay, second thing we're going to look at is installing sample packs, audio packs, acapellas, all that stuff. So as a new producer, you should have sample packs. It's just standard, you know. Without sample packs, your job's a lot more difficult, and sample packs are awesome, and even experienced producers will have some form of samples, even if they've made them themselves. All you do to add a sample pack is, obviously after closing options, you just literally click down here in Places in your browser. If your browser isn't open, by the way, as far as I'm aware, you just need to click that button there. Your browser will be open, but it should be open first time you open it anyway. Click Add Folder, you browse to where your sample pack is, and so in my case it's on a second hard drive. Don't need to worry about that, but I will find it, click it, and then I basically just click OK, and it will add it to the samples out the side, and there you go, and then they'll all be there. As you can see, I've got my samples here. Lovely jubbly. Adding VST plugins is a little bit more complicated, but it's not complicated. Just go back into your preferences, go to your library. No, sorry, you don't go to your library. You go to your File Folder tab. Here is plugin sources. You just browse for where your plugins are installed. So in my case, they're installed in an FL Studio folder, because that's where I've migrated from. You just browse to them. You make sure Use VST Plugin Custom folder is on, and you scan. Once that's done, you should find in your plugins, you have all your plugins. I don't have many, but they suit me perfectly fine. Okay, recording external inputs. So say for example you've got your audio interface and you've got an electric guitar that you want to record, it plugs straight into your audio interface, or you've got an analog synthesizer that just basically comes through an RCA jack. You're going to want to click this button here, which will give you your options here. Essentially it'll give you, like on an audio track, you'll have all your inputs, for example, just like that. So I'm going to play this piece of vinyl. I'm going to pretend it's an electric guitar or an analog synthesizer or something to that effect. I'm going to play this piece of vinyl. See it's coming through, and then all we do is we find the channel that it's coming through on. So in this case it's coming through on 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 8. It's coming through on 8 predominantly. So once we've found the audio input, we can play a guitar, play an analog sim. We can set this here to record. We can hit record, and it will indeed record that input, just like that. No problems at all. Also, once that's recorded, we can play it back, we can manipulate it, we can do whatever the heck we want with it. It's now an audio track, just like using a microphone or something. So that's how you set up the audio interface for external recording. Last thing we're going to look at is MIDI. If you don't know what a MIDI controller is, it's something like this. This is a chord pad control. It's a basic MIDI pad controller. It's basically 16 pads, and you can do drums with it. You can do all sorts. You can trigger sample packs with it. You can do amazing things. Most decent keyboards will have MIDI as well, like this one here. This is a very popular keyboard, if you can see it. That is an Axiom, M-Audio Axiom keyboard. It's one of the cheapest versions, to be fair. It's 25, which basically means it has 25 keys. They do like 61 key versions as well, but that has MIDI. And MIDI is basically just data. It just sends input output. So when I press a key, it will send a keys on. When I let go of the key, it will send a keys off, and it will also send automation values in between. So it will send the pressure of the key that you're pressing, and it will do things like your pitch bend and your modulation will all come through as well. So to set up MIDI controllers, just click MIDI here. Whatever you've got plugged in, my pad control's disconnected at the moment. For example, I've got this Axiom. So the control surface would be whatever you've got plugged in. So I've got an Axiom Direct Link controller plugged in. The input is the Axiom 25. The output is the Axiom 25. That's fine. And you're going to need to make sure that the track is on and the remote is on. Just like that. The track and the remote needs to be on. And then, see at the top right hand corner, you got this little icon here. You know you're getting MIDI input when you press a key and it comes through as a yellow input. That's how you know you're getting MIDI data. Yeah, so that's basically how to set up your initial audio, your sample packs, your VSTs, your audio recording, and your MIDI controllers. Thank you all.